Hi there, USBGF people. This is Phil Simborg, teaching folk with the USBGF, with a problem that came up in the Chouette the other day. You can see that red is on roll holding a 4 cube and is thinking about whether or not to redouble to 8. And of course the question is, should he do that? And then the question is, if he does redouble to 8, does blue have a take or pass? Because I wasn't sure of this myself and wanted to know the best way to analyze it, I called on my good friend and teaching partner, John O'Hagan, who is with us to help analyze this position for us all. And John is currently the number 13 ranked giant in the world, but I think he's highly underrated. I think he should be number 12. So maybe even 11, maybe even less. We'll see. John has a very extremely high win percentage. He just isn't playing in enough tournaments, I think, in Europe to be ranked as high as he should be. But he's a great player, and I think you'll see when you hear his analysis that he knows what he's talking about. So give us a couple of seconds of thought, first of all, and think about, if you were red, would you redouble here? And if you were blue, would you take or drop? And then we'll hear John's approach. All right, John, what's the story here?
Okay, Phil. Basically what we have here is red has what we call a pips position, namely all of his checkers, or almost all of his checkers, are on a 6, 5, or 4 points. In this case, he's got 2 on the 5, 2 on the 4, 1 on the 3 point. So that's called a pips position. On the other side of the coin, blue has what's called a rolls position, because it almost doesn't matter what blue rolls. He's going to bear off 2 checkers with every non-set, and he's going to take off, well, depending on which double he rolls, at least, well, except for double 2s, he's going to take off at least 3 checkers with every double.
So, John, what you're saying is, when you're looking at what we call EPC, or effective pip count, there are basically 3 types of positions. There's the pips position, which red has, the rolls position, which blue has, and then there's what's called a flat position, which is when they're spread out fairly evenly going across the board.
Yes.
And then there's the stack and straggler, I guess, would be another type of position where you have a checker outside the board.
Right.
So you're referring to an EPC formula for analyzing these short races.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so when you're looking at a pips versus a rolls position, or vice versa, a rolls versus a pips position, the trailer's point of last take is when he's trailing by leader's rolls minus 3. Okay? And what that means is leader's rolls is based on the effective pip count of the side-on roll. And it's based on Walter Trice's rule of 7n plus 1 being 1 roll, where n is the number of rolls that he has left to go. So in this case, the raw pip count for red is 21, and the question is, how many pips will he roll on average to bear all 5 of those checkers off? And if all of his checkers are on a 6, 5, and 4 points, you usually waste about 7 pips. When you get down to fewer remaining, though, it's less than 7. Usually goes down to about 5.5. But that's if they're all on the 6, 5, and 4 point. Here, red has 1 on the 3 point. And there's a pretty accurate and pretty simple to use effective pip count formula that handles this position pretty well, and it's by a player named Matuzak. And his formula is pretty simple in that you just take the raw pip count, in this case 21, and then you add a certain amount for every checker remaining on the board. And the way you decide how much to add is as follows. You always waste, according to his formula, at least 4.5. So you start with that 4.5. And then, if you add checkers on the 6 point, each checker on the 6 point wastes 1/10 of the pip. Each checker on the 5 point wastes 2/10. Each checker on the 4 point wastes 4/10 of a pip. each checker on the 3.8 tenths. Okay, so we will be looking at 4.5 plus 0.4 for the 2 on the 5 point, makes it 4.9, plus 0.8 for these 2 on the 4 point, which makes it 5.7, plus 0.8 for the checker on the 3 point, makes it 6.5. So that's the total wastage. 6.5 plus 21 is 27.5. Over the board, that's what I would use. As you can see, it's actually 27.8. Okay.
So you're within 3/10 of the right number, of the actual number. How did Extreme Gammon find this number?
You'd have to ask Xavier that question.
Okay. But you're assuming that you're pretty, as we assume with everything about Extreme Gammon, we can assume that this is a little bit more accurate than what you got.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So now, so over the board, I would think that red would have an effective pip count of 27.5, which in terms of the number of rolls that refers to, it's less than a 4-roll position, because a 4-roll position based on 7n plus 1, where n is 4, you'd have an effective pip count of 29, right? And so this is a little less than that. So therefore, Blue's point of last take is when he's trailing by less than 1 pip in the effective pip count. Now, if all of Blue's 7 checkers, so let's look at Blue's position now, if all of Blue's 7 checkers were on the 1 point, he would have a 4-roll position, which would mean he'd have an effective pip count of 7n plus 1, which is 7 times 4 plus 1, which is 29. And he doesn't have all of his checkers on his 1 point, so therefore we know his effective pip count is a bit higher than that. Notice that if he rolls double 2s, he only takes off 1 checker, whereas if all 7 of his checkers were on his 1 point, he'd take off 4 checkers and would save a roll, right? So we know that he's over 29, but even if he had exactly 29, this would still be a redouble and a pass, because then over the board I would have 27.5 for red versus 29 for blue. He'd be down by 1.5 pips. His point of last take is when he's trailing by about 0.8 pips or 0.85 pips, less than 1 pip. So therefore, it's a double and a pass. Okay,
so over the board, this is exactly how you would do it with the clock running in a major tournament?
Yeah.
You couldn't, there's no shortcut. You couldn't eyeball this and sort of feel like it's pretty surely a double and pretty surely a pass.
Okay, you could also use an approach that Walter Trice wrote about in one of his articles at Gammon Village, using the average pip count per checker method for blue. Now, there he's got a pip count of 14 spread out over 7 checkers, an average of 2.0 per checker. He's got an odd number of checkers, so he can miss once, right? And it doesn't really hurt him. So, it's pretty clear that his pip count is somewhat over 29. And since we know that his pip count, his point of last take would be less than 29, you know that blue should pass.
Okay, let's look at the analysis, which confirms what you said, and I've rolled this out. It confirms that it's a big double and a big pass. Okay. Now, here's something else that kind of confuses me a little bit. I know that in a money game, the dead cube take point is 25%, and the live cube take point could go down as low as 20, according to Extreme Gammon, and you and I know that in one odd position it could be as low as 18.75. Right. But generally speaking, we've decided, and Extreme Gammon pretty much uses 21.5 as the live cube take point if there's a lot of rolls to go.
Right.
At this point, he's just barely under the 21.5, and it's a big double, so it's probably right to say that his take point, his true take point here, is probably higher than 21.5 because he probably doesn't have that many opportunities to get in a re-cube.
Yes, that's true. It always matters how close to the end of the game you are. the fewer number of checkers each side has remaining means that the underdog has fewer chances to get a favorable sequence and turn the game around. So,
okay,
yes,
so the formula that you used to decide that this was a drop was based on the Trice formula, which is based on a normal match score where the take point is 21.5, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But I mean, keep in mind, the point of last take is based on the leader's rolls minus 3. So in a way, that takes into account how many rolls are left in the game, right?
Ah, yes. So it's good. That minus 3 is a much, much bigger amount to take off the closer you get to the end.
Right. So if red, for example, had a 6-roll position, then blue could take if he was down by 3 pips. But since red has somewhat less than a 4-roll position, blue can be trailing by no more than somewhat less than 1 pip in order to take. Yeah.
So I think we have to be thanking Walter Trice here a lot for being able to do these kinds of positions.
Right.
Well, naturally, when this came up in the Chouette, I do know how to use EPC, thanks in large part to you and a video that you and I put together, which used my video making talents and your brains about how to do EPC. And I'm not going to. I will put in a plug for that. We do have a video for sale for $25. A 50-minute video that tells you how to use EPC with a written document and also 10 practice positions, and we've sold quite a few of them. It's probably one of the easiest ways in the world that you can learn to do what John just did, and you can see how accurate this was for this position and for many other positions. Now, over the board, I got this right. I did double here as red, just estimating, counting rolls, but I had another major reason to double. I used Woolsey's law, and I asked myself if I was blue, am I taking or not? I wasn't sure if I would take or not, and so I thought that's the main reason that you always have to double. So I really didn't have to worry that much whether it was a take or not when I'm using Woolsey's law. As long as I'm not sure it's a take, I know for sure it's a double. And by the way, even if it is a take, I might get a pass, which is sort of what happened because 2 of us doubled the box and 1 of us got dropped. And fortunately, or unfortunately, I was the one that got dropped. And of course, the take was wrong, and he was punished for it by losing 8 points by taking. And it could happen to any of us. But I have to admit, the double decision for me here was much easier because of Mr. Woolsey. And the take decision, I can't swear at all that I would have gotten this right. It's very close and very, very tough to know. I think if you changed red 1 pip, you might even have a take here. Let's just see. If you moved one of these checkers to here, how could you not have a take here? I would think it would be a very big take. Look what 1 pip does. And John, do you think the formula would have gotten this right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can try it. Let's see. 1.6, 1.0, 1.8, 6.3 is what you add to 22, makes it 28.3. Okay, the Matuzak formula, if I'm doing it right, 0.6, 1.0, 1.8, 6.3 would say, no, it actually, Matuzak would get it wrong. It would say double pass.
It would say double pass. So
yeah, because really it would give a EPC of 28.8. I'm sorry, 28.3, and then we know for blue that blue's going to be somewhat over 29. So I'd have to do a little more calculating over the board to come up with blue. But I think I'd come up with about 29.4 or thereabouts. So then it'd be, the difference would be 1. A little over 1, and I would assume that red is a little less than a 4-roll position. So I would pass if I was blue, but that'd be a mistake.
Yeah. So the formula isn't perfect.
Right.
There's no such thing as a perfect formula that fits every position, then, is there?
Right. Right. And for those who want to read about it, you can Google Matuzak. That's spelled Matussek. And then type in words something like bear off, winning chances, Matuzak bear-off winning chances, and it'll show up there. And you can read about there's a couple of other adjustments that don't apply to this position I haven't mentioned. So, you can read about it there.
So the Keith count wouldn't work here very well. Kleinman wouldn't work here very well. Ward wouldn't work here very well. And it still might just work to say that, look, Red's got 1, 2, 3 rolls, assuming he wastes only once. And if he wastes twice, he might be 4 rolls. And right. Blue looks like a 4-roll position, pretty much regardless. And we know a 4-roll is a double and could be a bear take. So you might do it that way, and that's probably the shortcut that I would have used.
Okay.
Because it looks like Red might miss twice here, and certainly more of Blue's doubles play than Red's doubles. Red could roll a double and still lose, and most of Blue's doubles are going to make him a winner.
Yeah.
So I could see where you might take there. John, I really appreciate the help, and you're donating this time and your knowledge to the members of the USBGF who have exclusive use of these videos as one of their benefits of membership. And stay tuned, because John will be doing other positions at other times, and along with our other guest lecturers. And again, thank you very much for your help here, John.
Okay, Phil. Thank you.